It's a Saturday morning, and back in 1986, I did a video with these wonderful heavy metal band teenagers in Belfast, Maine. Now, you got to know, I live in Camden. It's kind of rich country. Up the road 10 miles is this town of Belfast. A pretty rough place, but a wonderful place. And I go up there in 1986 and I filmed this video and I put it up on YouTube. And 750,000 of you watched this video. I want to know what happened to one of the key guys. It's an interview between him and his mom. His name is Ed, and he was a terrific guy. And after a lot of wrangling back and forth, Ed decided to do this interview with me to give me a chance to find out what happened. So, Ed, tell me, what was it like back then for you guys? I mean, how did you feel back in 1986, if you can remember back that far?
It wasn't just about the music. It was clearly it was based around the music. The attitude was just so much more sincere. It had so much more passion. I mean, in that video, I mean, I'm a heavy metal kid. I had a cut-off denim jacket that I made and spiked wristbands with nails sticking out of it that I walked around wearing, that I made myself. But I also, in that video anyway, I was wearing a Black Flag shirt. And that says a lot about the time. Back then, there were no boundaries. We had heavy metal, punk, and hard rock, and then of course pop. Those were the genres of music. I can name 30 genres of just heavy metal right now if I really had to. It's changed so much for the worse. So much. It's really sad, actually, what's happened to people's attitudes about that music, being involved in it, and how much more commercial it is now compared to back then.
In that video, you say, you know what? I don't really care what the audience thinks. I hope they like us, but I'm doing this for myself.
Energy, just go up there with the I don't care attitude, and not get up there and worry, oh gee, are these people gonna like us? Just get up there and do it, And if they don't like it, then fine.
That was quite a feeling, a profound feeling. Did you go that way? Did you stick to your own heart about this, or did commercialism change you?
I basically, as a musician, I branched out like people do, but the attitude remained the same. That's the one thing that I can say honestly, was that I never sold out. And I actually had, around that time, I think later on, like around 1988, 1989, I had people that were saying to me that, like, oh, if you play this style of music, me as a person, they were coming to me and saying things like, you should leave this band and go. You could be a rock star. I had people saying that to me, regardless of whether they really meant it or whatever. People were telling me that, and for all intents and purposes, I could have easily believed that could have happened. I remember, coming off a stage and playing with my heavy bands, and people were like, you should join a Poison or Motley Crue type band. You could really make it. And I just thought that was ridiculous, because I didn't care about the image. I cared about the music.
I just like the energy. No other kind of music has that kind of energy in it. You could go to like say you take like a new wave band, you could go to their concert, and it's like, this is boring, and you don't want to sit there and just sit in seats and watch these people play their music on stage. I want to go to a concert where this thing is going on and people are running around and jumping off the stage, and it's really you know, powerful and loud and stuff, that's fun, you know.
If I was to join a band right now, it would be absolutely 100% what I believed in doing. No compromise. That's why I have a hard time staying in bands, because other people they want to compromise. I can't be around that.
Back then, you guys made the point, and you felt pretty strongly about this. You did, and others did also. Money was not going to drive you.
I'm just doing this to express myself, you know, doing what I want, you know, not doing, you know, getting a, you know, day-to-day job and 9 to 5, you know, every day get up, go to work and just live that kind of lifestyle. I want to do something and make music.
So here you are all these years later. Do you have a lot of money? Did you work in the workplace and get rich? I mean, what happened in terms of money between then and now when you guys were not going to compromise in order to make money out of this?
You can't compromise. We didn't compromise. And so therefore I never compromised as a musician. I don't believe any of the other guys, even after we split up, we went our separate ways. They all pretty much played music that was pretty sincere. They had different levels of success with playing music, just like I did. But we all collectively, I mean, if you had to really, you know, put it one way, it would just be that we all became casualties of that style of music, not successes. Because we stuck to what we believed in.
Back then, and in the comments that I'm getting on YouTube, people are commenting on, he is one good looking guy. Has that helped you in your life?
Wow. Well, did it get me places? Yeah.
What about the popularity that he has from doing this? You know, I mean, Eddie's a pretty good looking guy. I mean, I think a lot of girls would be attracted to him. You think that's a good thing?
Well, I think he is nice looking, not just because he's my son, but he's nice looking. And I believe that the girls would be more attracted to him if he changed the way he dressed.
To be honest, when I was young, when I was a young man, I used that to my advantage. I got things from it, from women. It's not something I'm really proud of, but I did do it. I never, you know, I think maybe going back to my initial comment about that, talking about before with, like, you know, people telling me that I could become famous. I think it was probably just based on, they probably thought I was attractive or whatever. I mean, that's all that music really was about anyway. Not the style that I played, obviously, but like the more pop metal bands, Poison, Cinderella, Motley Crue, you know who they are. Everybody knows who these bands are. It was all about that back then for the commercial aspect of that music back in the 80s. I could have cashed in on that easily. You know, I mean, I wasn't a bad looking kid. I don't think. I never really thought about it. I mean, like I said, I mean, I did use it to my advantage, you know. When you're young and you're kind of an okay looking person and you're a guy, and women want to do things for you to help you out because they want to be, you know, they want to be a part of that whole thing. You know, you will say things to it's pretty ugly to say, but you know, you're a guy, and you're in that situation, you'll use that to your advantage. I certainly did. Ended up biting me in the ass, but
How so?
geez, wow, you're making me think about things now that I haven't thought about in a long time. I think my pride and my attitude about the fact that I could do things to get my way my pride and my attitude about that eventually came back to haunt me. Because what happens when you're a guy that gets his way in that regard, eventually the person that you are victimizing is going to have to live with who you really are. And who you really are as a person when you're doing that sort of thing is pretty ugly, no matter how attractive you are on the outside. So what I was doing was pretty ugly. And you imagine you waking up every single day with someone with that attitude in your life. The relationship's not going to work, you know? And I used that to my advantage a little bit, but I was guilty of caring more about playing music than I was about the other person's needs and feelings. I was an asshole when I was younger, and yeah.
That's beautifully said, Eddie. I'm laughing because so many men would say the same thing, including me. I learned that at about the same age as you, right now. I
We could
want to
give
ask
you
you another question. Here we go. I feel, and many other people feel who watched the original video, the, I have to say, beautiful relationship between you and your mom. She doesn't have the same view as you, but there's a kindness between the two of you that thousands of subscribers have written me and said, I'd like to have that relationship with my mother or father that they do, where they can have different opinions, but not scream at each other and hate each other and refuse to talk with each other.
It's just a different generation, you know? That was back then, and this is now. For back then, that was like the most outrageous music there was. And this
Yeah, but I
music is
didn't-
the most outrageous that there is now.
But I
But it's
didn't
no
go
different.
as much into it as you're getting into it. I got
Well, I'm
into
in
it
a
because
band.
I liked the group. I didn't listen to, well, yeah, I listened to the
I
group.
wanted to make music instead of just being somebody who listened to it.
I had a really strong foundation of my family on my mother's side. And that obviously that poured over into my life because she's my mother. Very spiritually and spiritually strong spiritual foundation is what my mother's family, if I had to describe her family and her, I would have to say that. And that was the probably the no, not probably, absolutely was the biggest factor in my relationship with my mother. I was raised, and thankfully I was raised by my mother to believe that it was important to believe in things greater than yourself.
What do you hate about them?
It's because they're all Satan worship.
It's all Satan. Do you think that's really, they really mean that, or maybe it's just a...
No, I don't. I believe that Eddie likes the beat. I hope he doesn't like the lyrics to the song.
When you have a trust with someone to that level, no matter what happens and no matter how you get along or you don't get along, it brings a solid sort of a foundation to your relationship with each other, that no matter what happens, you really are there. And my mother, yeah, she's great. She always has been.
Of course, she is talking to you back then about traditional religion, God, because she feels very strongly that you strayed from that and that is going to hurt you. Has anything changed in that score? Have you returned to the church, or has she changed in her attitude of being more flexible about different ways of being spiritual?
There were at that time in the 80s, and you probably remember a lot of the, you know, uh, just to give you an example, I mean, some of the people that were really, really famous back then that were religious leaders, Jim Baker, um, Jimmy Swaggart, um, both of those guys eventually ended up, falling. Uh, the 80s had that, there was a stigma attached to the 80s, and it was based solely around that televangelist thing. A lot of people nowadays, they don't know what really that is. Older people do. Where like every time you turned the TV on, obviously we didn't have the internet. You turned the TV on, and there were a lot of these televangelists, and on different channels that you saw all the time. And what happened was these guys, a lot of them were preaching a lot of fear, and I think at that time, my people in my family, um, um, in my immediate family, were, they might have fallen kind of, I don't know, I guess victim to that a little bit, you could say. And my mother may have been sort of influenced by that and those types of preachers at that time. And the thing that I noticed was that she had a set of rules back then that she lived by at around that time. And I think that she would probably even tell you that she may have gone a little bit too far with it. She still believes in the same God. It's just he doesn't have rules like you have to wear a dress. He doesn't have rules like, if you're a woman, you have to have long hair. If you're a man, you have to have short hair, and all this stuff that you used to hear about all the time, which were the things that I had a problem with back then. It didn't make sense to me. And that probably, I just kind of thought of something. It might have had a lot to do with why her and I, we always got along, but we kind of see eye to eye a lot more now. She went a little bit this way, and I went a little bit that way.
Back then, by the way, I do really admire your mother for how she was, the gentleness and sweetness of how she felt about her son. But back then, you dropped out of school, and she asked you about that, and she wasn't happy about that, but she accepted it.
I got up one morning and she goes, "Where are you going?" I said, "Going to school." And she goes, "No, you ain't." And then she just let me stay home. Ever since then, I've just been staying home.
Was that, now, everybody's going to say it was a dumb decision, I shouldn't have done it. I don't really know. I don't feel that strongly about school one way or the other in my own life. How do you feel about that now? Was it a terrible decision or not so bad?
Yeah, as a 16-year-old kid, I thought it was a great idea because, I was going to be a famous musician. So I didn't have a problem with it at all. I had absolutely no use for any rules. School. I mean, I'll give you an example. I'm sitting on my couch right now and using my phone to record this because I can't stand sitting at my computer desk. And the reason why I can't stand sitting at my computer desk is because subconsciously it reminds me of having to sit at a desk when I was in school. So every time I have to sit down at it, I start to fidget, just like I did when I was a little kid. I hate it.
So today, you lit your apartment there in Maine. When you go to enjoy yourself for a minute, do you still listen to heavy metal?
I have kids that I went to school with, that I grew up with, that were into Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and all this stuff. And then now they laugh at that and they listen to country. I'm not one of those people. I listen to metal every day. I listen to others. The difference is, though, I listen to other styles of music as well, but metal is and always will be my passion. So yeah, I definitely am still a metalhead.
Do you still play? And are you still a headbanger?
Do I still play? The last band that I was in broke up in 2006, or I left in 2006. And it was because of I didn't have a passion for the style of music that we ended up playing. You know, I felt I wanted to do something. I'm the type of person who I can't just write a song. I can't just throw a song out. To me, writing a piece of music is like making a little mini movie. And George Lucas, Star Wars, said one time, he goes, movies are never finished. They're only abandoned. That's how I feel about music and creating music. When I write a piece of music when I'm in a band, and you can ask any of my ex bandmates this, if you interview any of them at any time, and they'll tell you the same thing. We would write a song, and I would change that song for weeks, and I would pore over this one song in detail. And I would, every time we went to band practice, I'd be like, I changed the song, and they'd be like, God damn. And they hated it because everything had to be perfect to the letter. Like, I don't hear music as much as I see it in my head. When I think of a song and I'm writing a song, I see the song in my head. I see images and I see colors, and the actual musical notes are just a byproduct of that. So I was always the one that would orchestrate all of this music, and I would see in my mind that I would have a whole image, and it would, like, I'm not saying that I'm a genius or anything, but it would be very elaborate, like the Sistine Chapel or something like that, in my head, of this heavy metal song. And it was very, very elaborate, detailed thing in my mind. And I wouldn't rest until it was molded into that thing. So because of that, it's hard for me to be in a band with people, because a lot of times most musicians, and especially musicians that play this style of music, they have a very narrow-minded approach to songwriting.
I'm like that, like you said, and a lot of artists that I know, either you do it my way or I can't stand your piece of shit. So you end up being alone. You end up being a solo artist with some helpers if you're lucky. And I've got a lot of them now on YouTube, but I can't stand the shit that I would be sometimes asked to do that I know was junk. I just couldn't do it. Yeah. Anyway, I understand what you're saying, which you said very well.
Yeah, it is. It's a curse.
Yeah. Curse. I like the curse. I want it that way. So wait,
yeah.
So Eddie, let me ask this question. So at that event, that Saturday, when you look at the audience in that tent, there's old ladies, there's old men, there's ordinary looking people. This is not a heavy metal audience, yet they're very supportive of the bands. Describe Belfast, Maine at that time, and who was in that tent.
You've been to Belfast, Camden, you're from that area, or you lived in that area. You know how these little festivals are. They're very general, wide range of people. Basically everybody from that area, that county, town, and 3-4 counties over, go to these things. They're there to do family things, and one of those things is to see bands.
You guys looked extreme, but as I remember you back then, you were actually very gentle. For example, you weren't looking for a fight.
We were not violent people at all. mild, humble kids. All of us were. We didn't go looking for fights. But it's a different animal when you take a person that is reserved and you put them on stage with this music. You sort of feel like you belong somewhere, and you belong with other people that are basically the same. And most heavy metal people that I know they're not outwardly destructive people. For me, and for the kids that I was playing in a band with at the time, being on stage and playing this type of music, once you're on stage and you're playing it, you're not the same person. You're not that little nerdy kid that's reserved. You're larger than life. You really think it. There's a part of you clearly that has pent up aggression. This music is an outlet for that. The crowd reacted to that music so extremely, that they were becoming physically violent. And these people were so impressed by this music that they were getting out of their chairs and walking up to us on the stage and like putting their thumbs down in front of us. It was great. And at one point I wasn't aware of this because I was just like, I had long hair, I was headbanging, and I had this big spiked wristband. Well, I had come up like this at one point to flip my hair back into, and there was a guy in front of me, I guess, and he was doing something like standing in my face. I didn't even see him. My hair was in the way. And I was just so involved and wrapped up in the moment of the music and just like letting it all go and just, saying, fuck you to the world, basically, that I didn't notice he was standing there. And I hit him and I cut his face open. And apparently I found out we were escorted. They shut us down after that. I think they pulled the plug on us. And we were escorted off of we had to leave the fairgrounds.
Everybody who looks at themselves on video, I always ask this question because I can't look at myself on video. I see different things than other people see. What was your impression when you first looked at that video? I mean, I don't know, have any idea what you thought of looking at the 16-year-old you.
I've never been the type of person that really dwelled on the past too much. It's destructive. It's really destructive. I know people in my personal life that throughout the years, their whole life they're living in the past. So I really try not to. I don't know why anybody would. However, it's a really, really cool place to visit once in a while. It's like looking at, those old family photo albums.
Think about this thing being seen like 50 years from now. What would you like people to think about?
I pretty much stayed the same person. If that's what you're talking about, by honoring this time. I was not a success at playing music, but rather a casualty of it. I went down a very, very dark road for a while in my life. I did horrible things to people. I was on the receiving end of that, just as well. I learned a lot of things. So I don't have any regrets about it. And I don't have any regrets about any of the horrible things that have happened to me. And I don't dwell on them because I don't want to say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I don't want to use, things like that. But I think what it was I think each person, and this is how I view my life, is if you stay true to yourself and you stay honest, and no matter what the cost, which I definitely have done, if you stick to that, then all of the life lessons that you learn through the hard things that you go through, that you put yourself through, essentially every bad thing that ever happened to me was my fault. You're a better person for it in the end. And so none of it is in vain. It's so, people that dwell on the past, and people who think, oh, I could tell you, you don't even know there was things going on in my life at that time when I was a kid that were horrifying. And you're going to have people that are going to be like, what was it? What was it? What was it? But they were bad. They were bad things that I was witness to, things that I experienced, things that no 16 or 13, 14-year-old kid should ever see. But I saw it. And I think because of that, and my spiritual beliefs as well, and my foundation that I had with my mother, I think that I took the honesty and the passion that I had, and the what's the word? The honesty of my approach to music and my life. And I took that through my life. And so when bad things happened to me, I always had that inside of me that, this is for a reason. And at 50 years old, I could tell you, that is absolutely true. Absolutely true. I had a peace inside of me my whole life, even when things were really, really bad, that always stayed with me, carried over even to now. I've gained a lot of wisdom, so I'm glad bad things happen to me. Because the thing is, the worst person in the world is to be someone who is exactly what they think they ought to be and have the life that they think they should have. Because those are the people who have nothing. Beautiful people who have everything that they ever could have wanted in life, know nothing. I would never want to be that person. I'd rather be the broken, starving, hurt, dejected, heartbroken, depressed, person. In all of those situations, I wouldn't give that up for anything.
So normally at the end of one of these interviews that I've been doing, I thank the person, but you deserve my respect. That's why I did it. I worked very hard to get you to be in my video, and I think you did a beautiful job, man. So
Thank you.